So I'm really curious to know because for those of you who don't know and didn't listen to our previous episode, just a little bit of context as to who Galen is and what he does. So he's been a sex therapist for ages, an author, an educator, and the thing that we discussed before and that I really want to dive more deeply into is you wrote a book called Decoding the Kink, and since I've spoken to you, I suppose what I've recognized is really how kink can play such a powerful role in an older person's life, especially if they have any sort of issues around sexual function.
Hmm.
Especially for men, where so much of their early sexual life tends to be performance based and around penetrative sex, and how kink can kind of sort of step in, if you like, and provide a different type of intimacy in later life. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that and your experience.
Well, it's a very, I think, important and relevant understanding to bring forth for people because kink is much maligned, much misunderstood, and people are afraid of it. People are afraid of others who want to talk about it or might be interested in it. So there's a lot of education, I guess I would say, re-education to do to destigmatize kink, because that's what it is. It's been stigmatized. It's not been looked at or understood because it's a very incredibly wonderful dimension of eros that's natural to us. Millions of people, tens of millions of people are already engaging or participating and finding, discovering for themselves their own kink. And that's an important point I want to emphasize too, that the foundation of some of my research and work, I developed the concept of the personal erotic myth, and the emphasis is on the personal. Every person is unique. Your sexuality is unique as a fingerprint and distinct as your eye color, and it is a natural and innate part of you, but there is no normal. I wrote a paper on my sexual integration therapy that I challenged this pathologization of sexuality from the negative side of the coin. If you look at the research or all of the institutional clinical models, there is no real definition of normal.
Yeah.
Sexuality is defined by everything that's abnormal. And I guess what's left, they decide, well, that's normal. We know what normal is. We don't have to define it. I know it when I see it kind of attitude. But the truth is, from my research, and that's why I called it the personal erotic myth, is it's unique to each person. Each person gets to discover and uncover and embody, bring forth this unique part of them that is a gift. And this is the mistake that's made when we stigmatize kink and our sexuality, our bodies, this whole sex negative immersion that most of us have been raised in, that we miss out on the incredible gift that our sexuality is, both to ourselves, but especially to our partners. What's this about for seniors? What is this? How is this useful, or is it useful, or what's it about? And you had mentioned, this is the stage of life where, things don't function as well as in our prime. And so if you can't, or you have difficulty having it for a man, if you have difficulty creating an erection or maintaining an erection, and you failed to have penetrative sex with your partner because we're so uneducated sexually, most people say, well, that's it. I'm done. Yeah. I can't do this it's over. Goodbye. I'll move on. I'll read books now or something. A plant in the garden. And but that's a terrible misuse or terrible loss of this gift of our sexuality, which in terms of kink brings you into, I have an expression I say, this is friction, eros is myth. And this is the stage of life, particularly when friction sex might not be as possible or as satisfying or as anxiety ridden and such about this performance idea. When you go into kink is based in the imaginal realm versus the cognitive rational realm. And in the imaginative realm, this is basically in the unconscious, this personal erotic myth resides, and it is a archetypal power exchange, symbolic, mythic, fantasy story that is yours. You have that. I can't say every single person does, but there's a lot of people definitely that have sexual fantasies. This is where your sexual fantasies come from. They don't come from external. They get stimulated by external material, but what's happening is it's activating or resonating this internal part that, yeah, that is your fantasy. Like you like to most people will acknowledge that if they look at porn or sexual have fantasies, it's much different than their everyday persona that is operating. They might be fantasizing about some level of power exchange, like the old classic Harlequin novels of the bare-chested beast and the woman in the throes of rapture and agony or something. These are graphical images of internal stories that, for whatever reason, it's a mystery. Why do we have sexual fantasies of such a range and such intensities? But many of them involve some level of power exchange. So if you're a couple now in your 60s or something, this idea of power exchange can be a very fulfilling area to explore and alive and an awakenment. And it doesn't require penetrative sex.
No.
Even it can, but I mean, you can find the pleasure of eros as fulfilling as the pleasure of friction, sex, and orgasm. That's let me pause there a little bit. I kind of threw out a lot of things there, but I'll close with I really encourage people to consider this idea of power exchange in kink, where it's dominance and submission. One takes control, one surrenders. I mean, it's accessing very many levels of emotional and physical content that is going to broaden the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, one of the issues though about some aspects around fantasies and realizing fantasies and the thoughts that we have tied to whatever desires that that are present is around the fact that we carry so many older adults carry decades of fear or shame or even trauma tied to their sexuality, right? So stuff's going on in their head, but then there's also other stuff going on, which is, should I be feeling this? Is this okay? Is this correct? Is this good? Is this negative? So what are some of the practical first steps that they can take to embracing and healing those real desires that they have? Because I suspect that's what stops a lot of people from moving into this terrain, is this kind of shame around it. Or as you said, there's always been this abnormal attached to it, even though we don't really know what normal looks like. We kind of think this stuff is sort of abnormal. So how can people begin to start addressing that in a positive way?
Well, if you step onto this path of what I call sexual authenticity, which is to claim your birthright of who you actually are authentically, that maybe you never have revealed or shown anybody else because of those stigmas of being shamed or judged or crucified, or all the things that the reactions that can happen. So it is a twofold path. The one is to claim your birthright, be empowered and authentic in your sexuality and embodied in it and conscious and all of those things. And the other is to untangle all of what you mentioned as the ways that one has been shamed or terrorized or traumatized, usually growing up. It's what it began there. And so that hasn't been resolved yet for many people. So it's at the same time you're getting turned on, you're also getting turned off by this fear, by this judgment, by this other part of it. There are two different parts of our consciousness. One is your authentic sexuality, which is instinctive. It's natural. You don't need to figure it out. It is what it is. If you just learn to be present and allow it, it already knows what it will do, what it will say, what it wants, how it will move and embody and be its body language. It's already there for you if you get out of the way. And the things that are in the way, are the work that needs to be done. It's an opportunity to do the work to heal those elements of shame, fear, and trauma that one has carried and which has dominated and ruled your life for many people, because it keeps them from stepping into their truth, from voicing their truth, from claiming
Because it's
their
scary.
truth.
It's scary. That's why. I mean, it's
Yeah.
sometimes
And
revealing
it's,
that side of yourself, if you've never shown it to someone, especially if you're in a long-term relationship, I suspect it's really bloody frightening. It's filled with risk. It's what if this
yes.
person doesn't want to see that? You know, they've been going along in this very predictable fashion. And maybe part of that is the fact that they've stopped having any kind of intimacy at all because it's just become mundane, boring, and predictable. And then the
Yes.
person comes along and goes, well, actually, it wouldn't be so mundane, boring, and predictable if I was allowed and if I felt confident enough to be able to release this side of me that's been sitting here present all of this time, but afraid to show itself. I mean, what do you say to those people?
Yes.
Because I do think it's scary.
And this is why this is an opportunity to finally face that fear and overcome it. And it is capable, you are capable of overcoming these fears, because it's like the Wizard of Oz, that everybody felt this, oh no, intimidating voice, and and then they pulled the curtain aside, and it's this little old chubby guy who was, nobody's afraid of that guy. And this is how most of our internal fears are. They're like the big boogeyman that we project onto this terrible thing. But if we really step into them and choose, our intention is, I want to take my power back. I'm tired of being ruled by this part of me that is afraid and is telling me this is bad. And people just, you have the power. That's an empowered voice. The way I just said that right there. This is your capability, is to take your power back, because these parts are ruling our lives if we don't face them. And so that's scary. As scary as it is, there's no other way than to step into these fears, and the reward is so fantastic. I really encourage people to go through the process of what I call sexual integration. My sexual integration therapy model is all about this reclaiming your birthright sexually, and then addressing the trauma, the shames, the fears, the internalized harsh judgments that we carry about ourselves, and taught, voices that tell us we're bad or sinful or all the things. So this is obviously complex work. We can't cover this in a short story here, but the tools are out there to start. If your intention is finally, I want to get more engaged with my sexuality, the tools, the education, the processes are out there. People can take it, and they're welcome to come to my website, galenfoos.com, and learn more about sexual integration therapy. But the place to start is always slow, at the beginning. So this is in terms of like a couple. For instance, how can we begin this journey? First, you both have to agree that, yeah, we have an intention. I would like to explore this. And I could talk about, well, how can you introduce this idea to a partner who you don't know in a way that protects your vulnerability, but also opens up the conversation. Like, for instance, you might say, wow, I was listening to this podcast the other day, and there was a 75-year-old guy who was talking about eros versus sex. And I was curious, and I listened a little bit, and I wondered, and they said about, you should talk about your sexuality with your partner. And I was curious, well, what do you think of that? Yeah. You might find a way to just break the ice, because what happens, and it's a tragedy, because many people take this to the grave. They never spoke it. But I've had experiences where this process occurs and the other partner goes, wow, me too. Or you too. They discovered, oh, we're both kind of interested in that. And they had never known that before, because they had never talked, never had the ability to speak these truths. So find a way. First, you have to have the intention to want to make a change, to want to embrace your sexuality. Then you have to understand, get strategic. How can I introduce this to my partner? If you have no idea how they're going to take it or not, find a way that's just, like I said, bring it from outside of someone else was talking about this, and I was curious, and what do you think? So, but people want to have sex. People want to be intimate. People want to be close together at heart. Everyone does. And if this is also put it in the context. I want to deepen our connection and our relationship. I want to be deeper into the truth that we can speak to. Like it's a powerful journey to take. If you take it, it's an enlivening journey. It is. You're going to be living life if you do this. This is what you're here for, is to experience this life and to enjoy the pleasure of it and to feel this closeness and intimacy with your partner. And all of those things are coming forth if you take the journey into sexual authenticity.
I'm just curious to know, because I've never asked you, was there some sort of light bulb moment with you, like at some age, where you were like, I'm not feeling like I'm living my truest sexual self?
Mm-hmm.
I need to do something about this? Or is this something that you've been, what was the motivator for you to kind of go on this journey, which clearly you've been on yourself? And I know that, at 75, you're still living at large. You're still out there. So what was that motivator for you?
That's a great question. I'd love to talk about that. I want to close up, though, that the last part of the conversation with one thing about the pathway for a couple, say, to do things
Yeah.
is start in the non-erotic path. Start
Yeah.
with just touch. Start with just holding each other, breathing, just feeling each other. Your bodies will do so much of the work if you just let them come together, because the body goes, oh yeah, that feels good. Yeah, so start there. Because so much tension is in the body
Mm.
when we are at the start of this journey, because wow, it's been 50 years I've held back. I haven't, so that's a lot of tension and resistance there. But if you just start with just touch, just loving each other, just feeling, just I want to be close, and intentionally make it non-sexual, so you don't just let it stay in that place of connection and intimacy. Your nervous system will start to kind of consciously breathe that way, but your body will finally relax. And from there, then let's discuss something. So always begin with just getting connected, feeling
Yeah.
connected, and in touch. Finished that. So to answer your question, I would say respond to it as I was aware of my sexuality by 5 years old in a way that was way beyond my 5-year-old maturity level, which was not mature at all. But somehow this is what I call about the personal erotic myth. It contains a distinct persona that is your sexual persona. It is this particular body. You have a particular body language, a particular tone of voice, a particular way you gaze at someone. When the sex creature is embodied, that's my affectionate term for this archetypal sexual persona. It is a full persona. It's autonomous. It can embody and start expressing and being who it is if you untangle all the things that resist it. But so by 5, I was aware of my erotic nature, not my sexual nature so much, because I was already fantasizing, and things went from there. The key was I already knew, even at 5, like this was, you don't tell any, something I had to keep secret. I just had the instinct that, I don't let on this part of me. I was a Catholic boy in a very conservative situation. So I hid it and kept it secret. It was very much alive all throughout my life. I was in secret, masturbating or fantasizing or looking at porn. I was keeping it part alive in me, but I also was in a total cover up. And I have a psychological disorder. I'm just finishing up a research paper on it. I'll call it sexual authenticity disorder. And this described what I had, which is the fear of revealing or others discovering the true nature, depth, frequency, style of my personal sexuality. So I had a very strong sexuality all my life. I didn't get to express it very much until I went through a divorce, or I decided to make a life change, which included a divorce. And that was in my late 40s. And that was where I chose to come out, to stop hiding, to stop pretending I was one thing and covering up or feeling unsafe, I was too afraid to show myself up to that point. And so since then, Yeah, it's not been a easy journey, but it's been a fulfilling journey. I've had to uh, do a lot of personal work. I mean, it was an amazing journey. I'm so grateful. I've had the opportunity for 25 plus years now to live, be a sexually authentic man. Just I am who I am, and I don't hide it. I don't brush it off. I'm present in it. You know, I'm discreet about it. I don't throw it around everywhere and put it in people's face. But if someone asks me, I'm going to tell the truth, and I'm excited to tell the truth. What a great feeling to
Yeah.
not allow myself to be intimidated by other people's fear and projection on me about what they think my sexuality is like, or who I am because of my sexuality. So this is a big era we are in. There's an Eros is emerging in a way that I think is unprecedented in the history of civilization, really, and it's still in a very immature adolescent stage. So most people have not approached it as a mature adult part of your life. It's still kind of cute. I mean, you know, people can't really, they don't take it seriously. They can't show that they take it seriously because, oh, what would that mean? I'm serious about sex. I can't. It's, you know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a lot of things to happen, need to happen, or are happening to bring about. I think Eros wants to get welcome to the table finally, and along with intellect, creativity, spirit, and emotion, which are all revered qualities of the human being. But sex has always been the bastard of human personality for thousands of years, and I think that's changing, and it should change. It's
I mean, I think your experience though is so interesting in that often it requires disconnecting from something that's not serving you well anymore, you know, in terms of ending a relationship where you feel that you can't be your authentic sexual self. Often I think it's easier to decide once you are liberated from something to go, okay, I'm going to start now doing the work that I want to do to be able to feel confident and comfortable in my sexual identity and be authentic in my sexual self. Very, very difficult, I suspect, when you've been in that long-term relationship and you might try to maneuver it into that new place that you'd like to be. And
mm-hmm,
I know for myself, when I got divorced, one of the reasons for that was because I also did not feel that I could be true to my own sexual self. And I made small efforts to try to see if there was some possibility that I could. And I was very quickly rebuffed, which led me to feel that that just wasn't going to be possible. And there were other factors as well. But I know for me that as soon as I was liberated from that relationship, that's when I felt like, okay, now's the time, you know? And there's never not a time, right? I mean, I think that's the thing is you were 40, I was 40 as well, actually. I suspect there's something around 40 that
mm-hmm.
goes on just from an
Yeah.
age point of view that you're still young enough to feel that you're still got some sort of,
Mm-hmm. Yes,
sexual
definitely.
something going on. But I see people do it later. I see people do it in their 50s and 60s. So I know that there's no time limit when it comes to stepping into this part of your persona that maybe you've hidden or you feel ashamed about or has been resulted from some form of trauma. That there's never a point where you can't do it if you want to.
There is it's just simply that facing the fear of it that has to happen, and we are wonderful. We're excel at avoiding fear, and unfortunately, to our detriment. Because I think one of the things about Eros that's overlooked or missed is it's so enlivening. I mean, I think it is rejuvenating. It keeps the body alive and feeling alive, and movement. You know, there's a whole series of elements to this process as we get to this age. Besides great sex and Eros, it's also about being connected to our bodies, being embodied, doing movement, staying flexible and toned, and stop eating terrible food and healthy things. Remember to breathe, learn to listen better. All of these are I think, the elements of becoming an elder, you know, to move into this stage of our life. It's a whole holistic system, I would say, of becoming an elder.
Yeah, and I think, as you know, everybody I've spoken to, I spoke to somebody yesterday, and we all agreed that this stage of life is absolutely wonderful, full of opportunity, as long as you're healthy, as long as you pay
Mm-hmm.
attention to your health, as long as you move, as long as you focus on what you eat, like you've said, as long as you do all these things that maybe are a little bit boring, but necessary if you want to be able to explore all the wonders of the
Mm-hmm.
being human, right? And all the opportunities that are out there. That's the bottom line, really.
Yeah, I think I'm glad we're having this conversation, and I hope it spreads because I think too many of our elders don't have a clue about any of this stuff. They want to, but they don't understand how do I do this. And I hope it becomes a movement and can be really a thing, where people are consciously growing into the elder years to enjoy it better, to live it, to experience it, to be mentors for the younger generations, to embrace our wisdom back. We've given up on the wise elder motif generations ago, it seems, in this culture, and we're losing a lot of that capacity of our culture of what the elders can bring forth, just in terms of blessing others or being, this encouraging presence in the world.
So, one final question for you. What advice would you give to someone over 50 who feels like they've missed the opportunity to explore their sexuality or embrace their desires?
This is the best time to begin. You've hit the right moment of where you've gone through enough life where you can now move into the mature aspect of how you approach your sexuality, your pleasure. And it's beyond, I like this, we overlook this idea. Even pleasure is verboten and taboo in this culture. So as you hit 50, it's the perfect time to start focusing on your pleasure, your partner's pleasure, be it sex or otherwise. But in terms of sex, it is, if you've been married 20 years and you've never talked about it and all this, resistance is there, come talk to me. I'll help you.
And why not?
Or
Why
talk to
wouldn't
Susan. I mean, it's like, get some help.
I'm not a trained therapist. You're the trained therapist. I just refer people to people like you. I'm just a little novice who slept with quite a lot of people. That's all.
Well, that's expertise. You've got elder wisdom there.
Yeah, or something. Anyway, it's
Mm.
been so lovely to talk to you again, and it's been great to see you. And you look very well for your 75 years, and I hope that you continue to thrive and to spread the good word about the pleasures of kink and fantasies and eros.
Thank you, Susan. You're a champion of all the good things for us elders here, so I appreciate
Thank
your
you.
work.